and the magic of leaves and oxygen. Why are plants green? Asked Zara, touching a leaf on the tall maple tree in her grandmother's backyard. Her little brother, Noah, was chasing a butterfly nearby, completely uninterested in Zara's question. Grandma Rose smiled, setting down her gardening trowel. That's an excellent question. The green color comes from something called chlorophyll. But why plants have chlorophyll is an even more fascinating story. Is it a long story? Zara asked, hoping it was. At 8 years old, she loved learning about how things worked, especially from her grandmother, who had been a science teacher for 40 years. It's one of the oldest and most important stories on Earth, Grandma Rose said, patting the ground beside her. Come sit, and I'll tell you about the amazing magic that happens inside every leaf. Zara settled next to her grandmother on the garden bench. Even Noah wandered over, attracted by the word magic. What looks like an ordinary leaf? Grandma Rose began, plucking a maple leaf and holding it up to the sunlight, is actually a solar-powered food factory. Like the solar panels on your roof? Zara asked, pointing to the shiny black rectangles that Grandma had installed last year. Similar, but much more impressive. Grandma nodded. Our solar panels can only collect energy, but leaves can use that energy to make food from thin air. From air. Noah's eyes widened. That's impossible. It seems like magic, doesn't it? But it's a process called photosynthesis. Photo means light, and synthesis means putting things together. So photosynthesis means using light to build things. Grandma Rose picked up her watering can and sprinkled the flowers in her garden. Plants need 3 ingredients for photosynthesis: water, carbon dioxide, and sunlight. I know water comes from the ground through the roots, Zara said proudly, remembering a lesson from school. Exactly right. And carbon dioxide is a gas in the air that you and I breathe out, Grandma added. Plants take in this carbon dioxide through tiny openings in their leaves called stomata. They're like microscopic mouths. And the sunlight comes from the sun. Noah chimed in, not wanting to be left out. Perfect. Grandma beamed. Now, inside the leaf cells are special structures called chloroplasts. These contain the green pigment chlorophyll, which captures the sun's energy, like tiny solar panels. Zara examined the leaf in her hand more closely, as if she might see these chloroplasts if she looked hard enough. Then what happens? This is where the real magic begins, Grandma continued. Using the energy from sunlight, plants transform water and carbon dioxide into glucose, a type of sugar they use for food, and oxygen, which they release into the air. Noah scrunched up his face. Plants eat sugar. They make sugar as their food, Grandma explained. They use it for energy to grow new leaves, flowers, and roots. Some of the sugar gets turned into starch and stored for later, like the potatoes we eat, which are actually underground storage organs full of plant food. So plants make their own food. Zara was amazed. They don't need to eat like we do. That's right. Plants are called producers because they produce their own food. Animals like us are consumers because we have to consume other things to get energy. Grandma stood up and led the children to her vegetable garden. Every fruit and vegetable you eat, the carrots growing here, the tomatoes over there, the apples on that tree, they all started as sugar made through photosynthesis. What about the oxygen part? Zara asked. You said plants make oxygen too. That's perhaps the most important part for us, Grandma said. Oxygen is released as a waste product of photosynthesis. It's like the plants exhale. Without this oxygen, we couldn't breathe. Plants and trees are like the lungs of our planet, producing the oxygen that keeps us alive. So we breathe out carbon dioxide, and plants turn it into oxygen for us to breathe in. Zara was beginning to connect the dots. Exactly. It's a perfect partnership. We give plants what they need, and they give us what we need. Noah, who had been examining a leaf of his own, suddenly looked worried. What happens in winter when the leaves fall off? Do we run out of oxygen? Grandma smiled at his concern. Great question. No. Many trees do lose their leaves in winter, but evergreen trees keep their needles year-round and continue producing some oxygen. Plus, in the southern hemisphere, it's summer when it's winter here, so those plants are still photosynthesizing. And the oceans, tiny plant-like organisms called phytoplankton in the ocean actually produce about half of Earth's oxygen. The children followed Grandma as she walked to the edge of her property, where a small creek ran through a wooded area. The sun filtered through the canopy of leaves above them, creating dappled patterns of light on the ground. Each leaf is like a tiny oxygen factory. Grandma said, gesturing to the thousands of leaves rustling in the gentle breeze. A single large tree can produce enough oxygen for 4 people to breathe for a day. Whoa, Zara whispered, looking up with new appreciation. But that's not all, Grandma continued. When plants make glucose, they're taking carbon from the carbon dioxide in the air and using it to build their bodies. Their stems, trunks, branches, and roots. This helps reduce the amount of carbon dioxide in our atmosphere. Is that good? Zara asked. Very good, Grandma nodded. Too much carbon dioxide in our atmosphere acts like a blanket, trapping heat and changing our climate. When plants capture carbon dioxide for photosynthesis, they're helping keep our planet's temperature balanced. Noah had wandered to the creek edge and was watching tiny bubbles rise from underwater plants. Are those plants making oxygen too? He asked, pointing. Good observation, Grandma said. Yes, aquatic plants photosynthesize too. Those bubbles might well be oxygen being released into the water, which fish and other aquatic creatures need to breathe. I have another question, Zara said thoughtfully. If plants need sunlight to make food, what happens to houseplants that are inside? Another excellent question. Houseplants can photosynthesize using light that comes through windows. But they generally need to be near windows because indoor light isn't as strong as direct sunlight. That's why houseplants might grow in the direction of the nearest window. They're reaching for light. As they headed back to the garden, Grandma pointed out different plants and how their leaves were arranged to maximize sun exposure. Some had broad, flat leaves to catch as much sunlight as possible. Others had leaves that turned to follow the sun throughout the day. Plants have been perfecting photosynthesis for over 3 billion years, Grandma explained. They're the original solar technology, and they're still more efficient than our best solar panels in many ways. Back in the garden, Grandma Rose picked up her magnifying glass and handed it to Zara. Look closely at the underside of this leaf. Can you see tiny little dots? Zara examined the leaf carefully. I think so. There are lots of tiny speckles. Those are stomata, the pores where carbon dioxide enters and oxygen exits. Each leaf has thousands of them, too small to see without magnification. Inspired by this revelation, Grandma Rose set up a simple experiment. She filled 2 glass jars with water and placed an aquatic plant in one, leaving the other as a control. Then she covered both jars and placed them in a sunny spot. Over the next few hours, watch what happens, she instructed. The plant will photosynthesize and release oxygen bubbles into the water. While they waited, Grandma showed them another experiment. She covered small sections of a potted plant's leaves with tiny pieces of aluminum foil, blocking the sunlight from reaching those areas. In a week, we'll remove the foil, and you'll see that the covered parts aren't as green anymore, she explained. Without sunlight, the chlorophyll begins to break down, and the leaf loses its green color. By late afternoon, the jar with the aquatic plant was definitely producing tiny bubbles that clung to the plant's leaves and rose to the surface. Noah was delighted, declaring it plant magic. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the garden, Grandma Rose had one more lesson to share. Plants don't photosynthesize at night without sunlight, she explained. Instead, they use some of the glucose they made during the day for energy, just like we do when we eat. During this process, called respiration, they actually consume a little oxygen and release carbon dioxide, similar to how we breathe. So plants breathe like us at night? Zara asked, surprised. In a way, yes. But they release much more oxygen during the day through photosynthesis than they consume at night through respiration. So the overall effect is still very positive for our air. As they headed back to the house for dinner, Zara looked at the trees and plants around her with newfound wonder. What had seemed like simple green decorations in the landscape now revealed themselves as sophisticated living factories, silently converting sunlight into food and producing the very air she breathed. I'm going to tell my teacher everything I learned today, Zara declared. Maybe we can plant more trees at our school. That would be wonderful. Grandma smiled. Every new leaf helps our planet breathe a little easier. That night, as Zara lay in bed, she thought about the billions of leaves across the world, all quietly performing their ancient chemical magic. The next oxygen molecule she breathed might have come from her grandmother's maple tree, or from a tropical rainforest, or from tiny phytoplankton drifting in a distant ocean. It was a comforting thought, this invisible connection to plants everywhere. With her new understanding of the secret life of leaves, even the simple act of breathing felt like participating in one of nature's most beautiful partnerships. Photosynthesis, Learning Activities 1. Grow bean seeds in different light conditions to observe how light affects plant growth too. Extract chlorophyll from leaves using rubbing alcohol to see the green pigment 3. Place a water plant in a clear container and count oxygen bubbles produced per minute in different light conditions 4. Make a model of a leaf cell showing chloroplasts using craft materials 5. Measure the amount of carbon dioxide released when you exhale using bromothymol blue indicator solution.